scheduled? Thomas, do we have anybody else scheduled to join?
Let me check.
I think Nadine is going to join.
Yes, I think she confirmed. Commissioner Funkelsrud, I think, cannot make.
No, I'm here.
Oh, he's here.
You are here. Okay, then that was somebody else that said they couldn't.
Was that Donna McCusker?
Somebody said they were going to be on a plane.
There's somebody I'm allowing to talk right now. I'm not sure who it is with a 916-984-3337.
Is that Donna?
Commissioner Johnson will not be here.
Okay.
Donna's here.
That's her.
Donna is here.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we have a quorum in any case, so I'm going to gavel the meeting to order precisely at 4 o'clock. Welcome everybody to the February meeting of the San Rafael Fire Commission. Do we have any members of the public that wish to join in? Not seeing any, I will skip past that and let's go to the approval of the minutes from January. Anybody have corrections or additions? Very nice set of minutes from Commissioner McCusker. There being no offering of changes or additions, does anybody want to move for approval?
I move the minutes be approved. This is Donna.
I second.
Okay. Okay, moved and approved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Not hearing any, the minutes are approved and incorporated. Donna, do we have anything from the Fire Foundation?
Yes, we do. So the Fire Foundation is back in sync and they are meeting again. Couple items. Number one, they're reviewing the possibility of working with the Firefighters Association to do a scholarship on a one-time basis for the local high schools to try and bring the San Rafael Fire Department to the fore. And so that's the first item that's new. The scholarship would not be exclusive to the San Rafael Fire Department, but it would be for a public service career that the scholarship would be intended. So that has not been decided, but it's currently under consideration. And the second update is that they're investigating, looking to restart the crab feed. Captain DeLambert was a serious force behind the event, and it required a tremendous amount of manpower. So they're looking at possibly reaching out to different folks to get a commitment to restart without DeLambert and his crew that he brought to the fore for the event in the past years.
Yeah, Captain DeLambert almost single-handedly put together the crab feed. So his retirement was a great loss to the department and to the Fire Foundation. Bobby D was a force to be reckoned with and had a lot of connections in Sonoma. So was able to get donations of wine and things like that were pretty unique based on his connections. So
Can I ask one question of Donna? I just want to make sure I get it correct in the minutes. So for the scholarship that you mentioned, is that for San Rafael High School? You mentioned local high school, but just want to make sure.
Carolinda and San Rafael.
Okay. And then who is it? I know you said it's under consideration, but who was this with? It's the Fire Foundation plus you mentioned another organization.
The organization that approached the foundation with this notion is the San Rafael Firefighters Association.
Okay.
And again, it hasn't been decided, it's under review.
Okay.
And the reason being that the scholarship would not be exclusive to the San Rafael Fire Department.
Okay.
And Donna, is the thought that the scholarship would fund education at a community college or elsewhere?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
These would be on a year-by-year basis?
That's the issue, because since it is not direct to the fire department, the concern is, the foundation isn't keen on making an ongoing commitment, but they're looking at possibly doing it this first year.
Okay, well, that sounds like a worthwhile endeavor.
Right.
Okay, anything else?
Not from the foundation, no.
All right, well, moving right along at the speed of light here, which is my favorite speed for meetings. I'm going to get right on to commissioner reports, and as has been my custom, we'll skip over and go last. So I'm going to call on Nadine.
Great. Hi, everyone. So not necessarily a fire report, but just a life report. I submitted my resignation with the city of San Rafael about a month ago, and I will still be on the fire commission, absolutely, but just very excited about this new journey that I have coming for me. So wanted to share that with the commission, and will certainly miss being part of the city of San Rafael as an employee, but will continue to be a resident, and I'm just really excited about getting some time to myself.
Well, I have to say that from a personal perspective, that's really good to hear. The city is going to miss you tremendously because your contributions have been monumental. And both to the city as a finance director and all of the other hats that you have worn, which are many, but also to the fire commission. And thank you for your service to the city. And I'm hoping that you stay on with the fire commission because you're a terrific asset.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Thomas Weathers, you're next. Long time no see.
Yeah, my apologies for that. Work has been crazy right now. I think with COVID subsiding, travel's opening up, so I'm traveling a lot to the different reservations. Nothing new to report. Things are good on the home front. Older boy in college, younger boy a senior in high school. I miss seeing you all. I'm looking forward to some in-person meetings again. Be nice to reconnect that way. But on the commission side, nothing new to report.
Well, thank you very much. Let's see, Ken is not here today, so David.
Just a couple of things. One was there was a piece I saw in the IJ. I think it was a week or two ago. It was about the mobile crisis unit. Actually, I can put it'll take me a moment, but I'll put the link to it in the chat. But I thought it was great. It was an opinion piece, and it was it was very celebratory of the city for what it's doing. You know what? I'm not sure. Is there a chat with this? I don't know, Thomas, maybe you know, but I'm not seeing the opportunity to put things in chat.
That I don't know either.
I don't see the chat option,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Huh. Okay. Well, if you have a subscription to the IJ, it was actually, I'm seeing it now, January 28th. And it was an editorial entitled Mobile Crisis Unit is Right Move as San Rafael Addresses Emergency Issues. And one of the call outs in the article that I thought was really interesting was just, you know, as we all know, the large percentage of 911 calls that are homeless or other citizens that could potentially be served by this program and not necessarily by emergency services. And then just really thinking about that in light of some of the things that are happening nationally with police and then in the recent case in Tennessee, medical personnel, you know, kind of being brought into some really difficult situations that don't turn out well. So this program really seems like it's addressing the root cause in a much more effective way and could be, you know, a good model for us to, you know, I'm always thinking about things from a PR standpoint, but if we have some, maybe once the program's up and running for a while, some results, we could share those, and maybe it becomes like a model for other communities to consider, so that emergency personnel are not called for some of these types of 911 calls.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that it's an excellent idea, and other communities have done that, and for many years, our police department was fortunate to have an officer who was trained in psychology, a PhD, as a matter of fact. A terrific guy who also was very involved in the crisis debriefing of both fire and police personnel. Joel lives in town and is an all-around really nice guy and a great resource to have. Haven't seen him for a while. I don't know what he's doing, but we were privileged to have him for a good many years. So I did not see that, or I guess I did see that article, and I have kind of lost it in the back of my old brain, but I think it's a great idea. So
Yeah,
thank
I'll
you for
put it into
bringing
the
that.
minutes. I'll put it in the article link into the minutes as well. And then the only other thing I had was super excited to hear about 55. I pass it every day, and excited to hear about the opening ceremony, and again, offering my services if there's anything I can do to help, if we're inviting media or others, if there's a ceremony similar to what was done, I think, a couple of years ago for the groundbreaking. So happy to help with that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Stan, you're up. And did you, let me ask, did you circulate your email on the small trucks to everyone on the commission?
I got a copy.
Okay.
Dan, we can't hear you.
Yeah, your sound is off, Stan. Nope.
I'm not hearing anything.
Doke.
I've
I
asked
want
him
to
to
log off,
unmute.
log back on. I've had that happen where they can't hear me even though I'm not muted.
Yeah.
May want to log off, log back on.
I'll watch for him to join back.
Maybe try from a mobile phone.
I was
Oh,
gonna say,
that's a
just
good
have
idea,
him
too.
call in.
Sign language, Stan? Well, okay, so let me see if I can dub in for Stan, who circulated an interesting comment about the use of a smaller apparatus, basically pickup trucks, some of which can be modified with a skid-mounted fire suppression rig that consists of a water tankage, a gasoline-powered pump, and hose. I've seen those used and use them myself quite a bit on prescribed fire burns that I was involved in for a number of years. They can be very useful. One of the things that Stan mentioned and the article showed was that the skid mounted rigs are relatively easy to, you want to try it again, Stan? Nope. You are as silent as the Sphinx. So the skid mounted rigs can be slipped into the bed of a pickup truck, appropriately rated for the weight. It's not a real quick in and out. They do require some installation and security and what have you. An interesting idea, and we'll leave it to the chief to comment on when we get to the next section. So Stan, unless you're raising your hand that you have anything else, that's it for your that's it for your contribution this time around. All right, so now it circles back to me, and I got a couple things. One sort of in the sort of in the vein of commissioners making recommendations to the fire chief, and this comes as something of a question, and I'll preface the question by explaining to the other folks here that all of the fire apparatus carry a 14-inch gas-powered saw. These are equipped with a diamond blade that will cut through almost anything, concrete, steel, etc. And they're used to gain entry to whatever needs to be opened up to gain access for either rescue or fire. They are large, they are heavy. I happen to have one. And some years back, I noticed an alternative in the form of a battery-powered Makita. I wouldn't say it's a skill saw. It is a small 6-inch saw with a metal cutting blade. And I acquired one. I have used it extensively over the years. And in fact, one time at a vehicle fire investigation training, where we burned 6 or 7 cars, one of the exercises, the initial part of an exercise, was opening up the hood of a burning vehicle, and most vehicle fires originate in the engine compartment. One of the participants went for the 14-inch gas-powered saw, and they were having a little difficulty getting it started. So I hopped into my truck, pulled out my Makita metal cutting saw, and in about 20 seconds cut across the hood of that car and opened it up. And so the question that I'm going to throw back to the chief is, are you aware of any tests that have been run anywhere in the country on the use of small, lightweight tools like that are really easy to use, and in some cases, a better choice, it seems, than some of the traditional tools?
Thank you, Commissioner Luckham. I'm not familiar with any recent testing. I am familiar with the use of smaller handheld tools that, for instance, won't create a spark.
Right.
The old Porta-Power, as an example, would be effective and was always a good alternative that the younger firefighters trained on with the seniors who were very accustomed to using those tools when they came into the fire service. As far as smaller handheld tools like Milwaukee saws or steel saws or some of the other vendors that are out there now, I haven't seen very much, but I haven't been in the field to actually go and see the vendor shows in some of those locations where you might see new product being demonstrated, so that I could see whether or not there's a lot of change. I have to imagine that the use of composite materials and some of those other things have reduced the weight on the saws, but they may not have really reduced the size of the saw, because the size of the blade that you use, as an example, will dictate that you have a certain size piece of equipment. What I have noticed, though, is certain companies like Homatro were developing lighter weight product for rescue purposes. So if you were using spreaders, you were using cutters, you were using other devices that could be powered hydraulically, those were a lot more user-friendly in the way of weight and having to carry it some significant distance in the event you're going down a ravine or somewhere else where there's an overturned vehicle and you don't want to have to carry this heavy generator and the heavy tools with you. Hamatro did an excellent job, but those were being primarily used in, when I first was introduced to them, was in aircraft rescue firefighting.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to assume, though, that there's a lot of development and research that's taking place that enables the modern firefighter to be equipped with something that's more user-friendly, but still as functional as you need it to be.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Up until fairly recently, there really weren't blades made, toothed blades that were made for metal cutting. Most of the metal cutting blades were abrasive, and of course, those when you're involved with ferrous metals, those give off sparks. These are especially ground, especially designed carbide tools, and the little Makita that I have, it's not just for sheet metal. I mean, I can cut 3/4 inch water pipe and what have you, and it takes 5 seconds to go through a heavy piece of 3/4 inch water pipe. I remember being out on a fire in the middle of the night once, and it was at a warehouse. I don't even remember where now, but it had a roll-up door, and the crew, that was the only access, and the crew fired up the steel 14 inch, and it was a struggle because those things are heavy, and you're going up 6 or 7 feet and then trying to go across 6 or 7 feet, and it took some time to do. And I was thinking, all of this came about because I happened to get that saw out over the weekend to do some cutting of angle iron, and remembered that I've been playing with it and using it for quite a number of years, and have many times thought to bring it by the fire department and see if there was any interest in doing some tests with it. But on that fire with the roll-up door, I was thinking, somebody could have cut that with one of these little saws in a minute and a half, and it probably took them 5 times that, at least, with the big saw to get in there.
Yeah, I think to your point, it really depends on that roll-up door. Also, is it commercial grade or is it residential? One of the cuts I'm familiar with is the TP cut. So you cut almost like a triangle, and then at the base, and you fold it over, and you're able to get entry pretty quickly. And I think there was quite a few advantages to that cut. But to your point, it's really going to depend on the construction of that roll-up door, but also the condition of that blade and or the skill of the operator.
Yeah. No, there's no question about that. That's for sure. I just think it came to mind as something that would be interesting to investigate. And should the department be interested, I'd be more than happy to provide equipment and try and figure out a way to test.
Well, we appreciate that. We're looking to get a training coordinator put in place here in the next several weeks. And so hopefully that individual may be able to reach out to you and see if there's a way to get a demo and, provide the members with something that they probably haven't given a lot of consideration to.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Good idea. The other thing that I, on my list for this meeting, last Wednesday, I think it was probably last Wednesday morning. Yeah, I think many of you know I live on Canal Street with a house that backs onto the Santa Fe Canal. And last Wednesday, we noticed an oil sheen on the water just adjacent to our house. It wasn't real bad at that point, and I got busy with work and didn't do much in the way of follow-up. But over the next couple of days, there was quite a considerable buildup. And I reached out to Public Works for the coordinator who was dealing with Dutra's dredging operation. One of my neighbors reached out to the Coast Guard, et cetera, to see if anybody was aware of it. And there didn't seem to be an awful lot of awareness. Subsequently, my neighbor heard from the Coast Guard that a tug operating out behind Montecito had tipped, and I'm using the word that I was given, and there was a spill, and they were investigating. By Monday morning, the water was pristine, clear as can be. And I took my boat out and went up and down the canal, and it was clear as far as I could see. I know that we had a dispatch. I think Engine 52 went out on a odor investigation. They could smell gasoline or diesel, but never found a source. Chief, do you know anything about the incident and what the heck was going on?
I only know what I saw of your email exchange and Chief Senate's investigation and follow up on that. And you've got more information than we were able to obtain as regarding the tipped tugboat, because we didn't even hear about that. So, I imagine that, depending on what happened with the tug and how much was, overturned, that it probably was a wide swath of area where that fuel ended up. And, the canal clearly is a place where it gained entry and a definitive quantity because of how the canal is constructed. But the great thing is it is now cleaned up and it's not something that's lingering like an oil slick would be or something of that nature.
Yeah. And this was light fuel, so it was either gasoline or diesel. And, I could at various times thought I could detect one or the other, but it was not any heavier lubricant or bunker. I mean, there have been cases where there have been spills in the main ship channel, and when you get bunker oil spills, that gets to be really, really nasty. Anyway, okay, well, that's all I've got. Thanks for the information on that, and I'm going to turn it over to Chief White.
Now, I want to make sure, did Donna have something that she was speaking to, or did we already have Donna and I missed that?
Chief White, I don't have anything to add today, thank you.
Oh, no problem. I know you spoke on the Fire Foundation, but I just wanted to be sure. So
Yes.
thank you all. And first, I'd like to start by thanking Commissioner Luckham for the work he's done over the last several years, and certainly during my tenure here to encourage me both individually and professionally, and to support our efforts through the Fire Commission. I know this is something that people do because they have a passion and an interest, and yours is clearly above and beyond what I've seen for a variety of individuals. I think it's only rivaled by Dr. Mizrock somehow from what I see and know in the way of tenure and longevity and contributing to the San Rafael Fire Department in our community. And so, not to take away from any of the other commissioners, I recognize you've been doing this for quite some time, and you've had a vested interest in supporting our department for so long. And I really just want to extend my appreciation for all that you've done. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Before I get into my report, I want to cover something else because it's important, and I don't want to lose this to an opportunity, because I need to communicate back to the city clerk what we're going to be doing in the way of our meetings moving forward. But before I speak to some of the email content that I sent out, I learned something very interesting this morning during a Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority meeting, and how they're approaching the Brown Act and what we consider to be traditional Brown Act teleconference rules versus AB 2449. And depending on how you're looking to operate, there's some flexibility with the traditional Brown Act as opposed to the AB 2449, which I think a lot of agencies are maybe aligning with. But from what I understand, and based on what I heard from another city manager in that meeting today, there's a desire to actually operate under the traditional Brown Act and teleconference rules. And the difference, the stark difference I saw is that instead of people having to co-locate, and now you restrict the ability of the members to use Zoom or some other teleconferencing by phone, et cetera, et cetera. You have the jurisdiction as your quorum as opposed to one specific physical site. And so I say that to offer with AB 2449, I understand there's only really like 1 or 2 opportunities for members to miss a meeting and be on a teleconference or be on a Zoom call or a hybrid, if you will, as opposed to the traditional Brown Act teleconference option. And so I don't want it to be something that I speak to as if I have any expert knowledge, because I don't. Like I said, I just heard about it today, but I certainly think it's something worth discussing and exploring, because it will afford flexibility for those who don't want to come in person to still be, I'll say it appears to afford those who don't want to or aren't able to come in person to be able to connect remotely, as long as they're within the jurisdiction. And if we look at perhaps the county as being within the jurisdiction, I think that might meet the definition and enable those who want to connect remotely to do so. But I've got a document, or excuse me, I took snapshots of it from my phone. I can try to piece that together and put it out as a document so that everyone can see and understand what I'm referring to. I know we're getting different guidance though through our city attorney's office. And so this is something I want to bring to the city attorney's attention also, to make sure I'm understanding what flexibility exists, if any, for our fire boards and commissions. And so it may not apply for our city fire boards and commissions. That may be something that the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority has latitude to do that we don't have latitude to do. But I just mentioned this because I think it was something interesting to learn about today that I hadn't heard of until this morning. So with that, I just want to share that. But on the other side, the flip side is, let's just say, for argument's sake, that we have to still find a location to meet at, what the same way the commission used to meet at prior to the pandemic starting. I mentioned the possibility of doing multiple site visits to different stations or the public safety center or our training division. But one of the things that was brought to my attention is that there's audio visual camera and recording and microphone needs that need to be taken into consideration every time you relocate to a new location, which could be really a challenge to try to get that put in place at every different location without some logistical assistance or without some technical assistance. And Lord knows I'm not tech savvy. I can get my television to work with my speakers and my other devices, but we start getting a little bit out of my range when you get past that. So I want to put that out as a disclaimer. And so if we're going to consider a rotation, I think that has to be clearly articulated, that might be a problem to allow the public access to our meetings if we're not able to have that setup done each and every time. On the other hand, we do have the option of looking at, say, the training division at Station 52, or even something that I understand was the plan here prior to the pandemic was, once the Public Safety Center was constructed and available, then we would perhaps be having the Fire Commission meetings right here, perhaps in one of our conference rooms or in the Emergency Operations Center, given availability. And so I share that with the group because I want to make sure I land on what it is we're actually trying to do before I give the report, and so I can inform the city clerk today.
Okay, yeah, the rotation, historically, the Fire Commission meetings were held in the little tiny conference room adjacent to the fire chief's office in fire admin before that old building was torn down. We did make periodic visits and held meetings at stations. We also at one point held a meeting at the I've forgotten now what we're calling it, the rented space next door where we had
Los
dispatch.
Gamas? Los Gamas?
No, it wasn't Las Gamas. It was before that. It was while we were
Oh.
still in the old admin building. We moved dispatch out of the little hole into rented space in the building next door, which also had office space for the battalion chiefs and was sort of a backup to the EOC. But the meetings at the stations were relatively rare. Once or twice a year, maybe. And the Brown Act requirement was satisfied by simply having that location posted 72 hours in advance so that the public could attend. Very rarely did we have actual public attendance, but that was before we were having any sort of hybrid meetings, and AB 2449 is a new one on me, so I'll have to look that one up. No idea.
So if we were to look at identifying at least one place, what would we prefer that might be centrally located, but still has the ability to hold several individuals and has the audiovisual recording features, et cetera, et cetera? Would you guys prefer the Public Safety Center or perhaps Station 52 where the training division is? And I offer that only because I think there's a little bit more parking in that area if you're looking at parking lots adjacent to Station 52, as opposed to some of the parking constraints we may find over here at the Public Safety Center and City Hall. So I don't want to be the one to select. I just want to put out the two options, and those are the two I'm thinking of. There may be some other options that I haven't considered, but I offer those two first and foremost.
I personally vote for the Public Safety Center. As long as it's not during some big library event, the parking lot back here should have ample parking spot. And it's well, maybe it's central, maybe it's not, but it's close. They're all very close. So but I also think that it's nice to see that space once in a while.
And I agree with Nadine. I think Public Safety Building would be the better bet. Over by the Station 52, that when San Rafael High gets out, it's impossible to drive around there, park around there. It's a zoo. So I think it'd be easier for everybody to do it over here downtown and try to stay away from the high school as much as we can.
There are, as I'm thinking about it, there are two options at the Public Safety Center. One would be the EOC, and the other would be the first floor conference room between the fire and police. I think that's set up for audio visual, but I'm not 100% sure. That's a much smaller space, although it's much bigger than the old conference room that we used to use. It's a pretty small space. The Station 52, Station 52 in terms of the space itself is really very well set up for meetings that could grow to fair size, although we usually don't have a lot of public participation. But as you point out, the parking there is a bit of a challenge, and the Whole Foods lot is used sometimes, even by me, when running across the street to 52. I don't think they particularly welcome folks parking in their parking lot who are not shopping in the market. So that could be a problem. And other than that, I would just throw it out. Stan is wanting to.
No.
Sam says PSC.
PSC, okay. Well,
Chief Weiner?
if we were counting votes, it sounds like the PSC has the majority of the votes.
I do have a question. This is Donna. Am I understanding you to say that remotely attending is considered missing the meeting? That I know we're allowed to miss 2 meetings per year. I understand that. But is attending remotely qualified according to that report that technically that's a miss?
That's my understanding, is that remote option is only to be utilized in, say, an emergency situation. And
Huh,
given that,
Okay,
given that, you're able to obviously miss up to 2 meetings because of the commission's requirements. But when it comes to the other requirements and regulations involving boards and commissions, your presence is required when you do
Okay.
come, right? And so that's why I was looking at this other information I saw earlier today that's being entertained by the MWPA, because if there's any opportunity to consider that within the city of San Rafael, I certainly want to push that information forward to allow other boards and commissions flexibility that they may not have currently with what's being directed. But it would seem to me our staff has already done the research and would know about this, but there's got to be something that's San Rafael centric probably about this, or about the nature of our boards and commissions. And as a result, it may not apply to us. But since I'm looking at another subcommittee meeting that's actually using it within MWP, I just wonder, was there any nexus or any possibility?
and the second question I had was, I understood you to say that if a person were to attend remotely, they had to be domiciled within the county during that remote attendance, correct?
Under the traditional operation, that would be considered within the jurisdiction, was the term that was used. And so I use the county as something to consider as the jurisdiction, because if you looked at the MWPA, it's comprised of a variety of agencies and personnel who are either fire chiefs or district managers or other individuals who comprise or reflect the entire county, not just within one specific agency or community. So I just took jurisdiction to mean countywide and applied that to us here.
I think that would apply to the MWPA because it's a countywide agency, but for the San Rafael Fire Commission, the jurisdictional boundaries technically are the city of San Rafael.
Right, and if that could be applied on a scaled down version to, instead of being countywide, the jurisdiction terminology still applying to local jurisdiction, that would probably apply if it were to apply. I don't know.
I don't either. That's a good question for the city attorney.
Yes.
So until we know further, more to come, correct?
Well, until we know further, I'm going to say let's default to we're required to meet in person unless we hear otherwise.
Gets
Okay,
complicated.
so I will say, having been the newest member, that is absolutely not what I was told when I applied for the position as commission, and I realize a unique situation. And I find it rather restrictive that, given the illnesses that have been ongoing for the last couple of years, if a person is ill but not so ill that they can't attend, but don't want to share whatever it is that they have, I think it's wrong that they can't attend remotely only 2 times a year. So I just wanted to go on record with my feedback.
Yeah, and the 2 times a year is unexcused absences. Unexcused absences, which is to say, an
We'll call it no
excused absence, yeah, wouldn't count.
Stan, I thought I heard your mic cue up, like maybe we could have heard you. Can you try again?
3, 2, 1.
There we go.
Oh, hello.
Yeah,
See you later. I'm glad I was here. I'm in line with Donna and also with PSC. And these things are obviously evolving, and you can thank COVID for that. So it's like trying to nail Jello to the wall. We're not there yet.
Well, Commissioner McCusker, I certainly will try to get as much information as I can because we certainly don't want to constrain you in any way. And I'd like to have the flexibility moving forward, just like you on how we're able to go about our meetings. It's kind of beyond my pay scale and beyond my decision-making and authority. And so I'm sharing with you my understanding that's been communicated to me from city leadership. And so that's certainly something that I think as we look at and we're tackling it here, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other folks that are going to have similar sentiments and probably look to see how we can modify these things moving forward to be more applicable to the realities of having a Zoom or remote feature or a hybrid meeting possibility. So I would just say there's a very good chance this may be modified, but it may take a little time to modify.
Chief,
Understood.
one more thought in your notes as you pursue this. We have had meetings, the way we're doing them now on Zoom, when Larry was in Mexico and joined us,
Mhm,
and when Ken was in Omaha City
mhm.
and joined us. That's not our jurisdiction,
Right.
but they joined us because they are members of the commission.
So let me clarify also to go along with your point, the quorum, there has to be a
Yeah.
quorum within the jurisdiction. So as
Yeah.
long as you meet the quorum requirement, others can still come in from outside and
Yeah.
participate under that
No problem.
traditional network, but you
No
have to
problem.
have that quorum.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
But again, I'm gonna try to get these off of my phone and get them onto, the format that I received. In fact, I'm gonna reach out to the individual that produced them and see if they can just send me the pages. And then I can share them with the group and you guys can look at what I'm referring to.
Sure.
And then also I'm gonna forward it to city leadership and ensure that they have the benefit of this because it came from Novato and a conversation that stemmed from, like I said, their efforts and their research into this as well.
Okay.
So, sorry, I'll get back onto my report now and I'll make it the Sports Center 3-second or a 3-minute version. How about that? All right. Speaking of Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, the work plan is coming along nicely. The conversation that we had this morning was with the ops committee, which was discussing some of the projects and some of the timelines and deadlines that are forthcoming. Won't go into a lot of detail on that. I'll give you more at next month's report. But the substantial amount of rain that we had, according to Executive Director Mark Brown, that 3 weeks of rain we had roughly from December 26th through January 17th is about the most rain we've had since 1861 in a similar period of time. And so it's just amazing to see how much rain we've gotten. And I'm clearly believing we're out of the drought conditions right now. And the more rain we get, the more that just kind of cements the fact that we won't be experiencing drought here in the immediate future. That being said, there was concern about whether or not some of the projects and some of the work that's been done could be impacted by soil erosion because there were fallen trees, there were floods, there were down power lines, a lot of associated things that occurred with those heavy rains and winds. But that being said, there was nothing noticed or noted rather in their assessments that indicate that there's any damage to those areas and those projects that were underway. I've stepped away as Ops Committee Chairperson. I've now become President of the Marin County Fire Chiefs Association for the next couple of years, and Stinson Beach Fire Chief Jesse Perry has now taken over the responsibility of Ops Committee Chairperson, and he hit the ground running today in the meeting and did an excellent job. So he'll have that responsibility at least until the end of the year. The MWPA is partnering with Willow Labs. We're trying to utilize the how can I call it, the DSpace evaluations and the homeowner inspection information to share with Willow Labs to paint a picture for the insurance industry and provide a ranking, if you will, that shows how well and how much compliance a particular property or parcel is within. I think that's helpful as you look at the insurance industry's decisions recently to either not write new policy or to somehow or another decide to withdraw coverage for people that are living in the wildland urban interface and some of our severe threat zones and elsewhere. And so this is an ongoing problem that's looming within the county. And so we're hoping that this partnership with MWPA as well as some of the insurance company representatives, will kind of lead to better rapport and hopefully not the redundancy and effort between the two entities. So I know Ken Johnson spoke to some of this, well over a year ago, but now there's actual collaboration and information sharing taking place. And so the hope is that's going to lead to better decision-making on the part of those insurance underwriters and those who have decided that California is too much of a risk, especially Marin County and some of the other areas that have faced substantial challenges with vegetation. But we'll see, more to follow on that. COVID, this time last year, we were right in the midst of Omicron, and the variant from COVID-19 was doing a lot of damage within our communities. We were still facing substantial death and hospitalizations and risk at that time. I'm really happy to say a year later, it appears we've actually moved from what I understand from a pandemic to an endemic stage, where now the federal and state agencies are looking to allow the local jurisdictions to mitigate their own challenges with COVID at this point, because there's not the severe outcomes that we had been experiencing a year ago with Omicron. The new variants are highly infectious, but they're not creating the same level of death and or hospitalization that we had experienced just a year ago, or even 8 to 10 months ago. So with that, at the end of this month, as we discussed earlier, the city and the county are looking to align with what's taking place at the state level when the governor withdraws or suspends the emergency declaration. Sometime in May, I believe May 11th, President Biden is looking to do similar on a federal level. And so that's going to have some direct ramifications for folks in the way of the cost of vaccinations and the way of expense for any number of things related to the pandemic. Pfizer, for example, has said they're going to start charging $130 a dose for the Pfizer vaccine or a booster. So although this is something that is anticipated and we know it's coming, there will be some consequence as a result of decisions that are being made. Some folks in the one of the parties, may have been the Republican Party, has been saying we should terminate these things now, don't wait 3+ months. But I think the 3+ months gives the state agencies time to start winding things down and getting the notice out and getting people prepared for the eventual change. Ironically, only 15% of Americans have received that updated booster that came out from either Pfizer or Moderna since this past fall. So 85% of the country has opted not to receive the booster. And that points to me that they're either vaccine weary or vaccine wary. Either way, we're now looking at folks not really looking to take the vaccinations. And as a result, that could be why I caught it in November. Who knows? But I took my vaccination, got my boosters, but I still ended up catching COVID quite unexpectedly. So thankfully, I'm still here. Yes, data for Marin County specifically. Confirmed cases year to date, as of the time I generated a report last week, 44,394 folks. And then that had only been a 5-person increase in a 10-day window. Cases in the last 10 days, there were 88, which was up 3. Deaths, 273, holding steady. No new cases nor no new deaths related to COVID recently. And so that's really helpful. Hospitalizations, 16. 2 of those individuals are in intensive care. I don't have any other detail about those 2 individuals. I don't have any information about their age, whether they were vaccinated or unvaccinated. The first Marin County positive test was reported almost 3 years ago. It was March 8th, 2020. So more to follow on that as things progress. I did hear recently that some of the Marin County elementaries are seeing a rise in COVID, and so they're looking at going back to mask mandates. Some 54+ students have tested positive for COVID, so I think they're trying to get ahead of that by ensuring that there's some precautions being taken in the elementary schools, which hopefully helps those at home as well by not being subject to receiving secondhand COVID exposure. Station 54 and 55 renovations continue. The Station 55, I'm told we now have a target date of February 20th for the opening of Station 55.
Mhm.
I'm not 100% certain on that, but we're more certain than we were, which is really helpful. And Station 55, as you look in the photos, there was a window that was relocated. I think I may have spoke to that in our last report. It's been relocated away from a gas meter by a few feet so that it's within code compliance. And there's some landscaping taking place right now, so it's really coming along and the crews are really looking forward to getting there. Special thanks to Fabi and others who have really been trying to work under difficult circumstances with a vendor who is challenged by weather and some other dynamics to deliver as early as we would have liked them to, but that's the current situation. Station 54, did I say 54 the first time or 55?
No, you said 55.
55.
Great, okay. Station 54, which somehow or another, there we are. The snapshot that I showed was a snapshot from the rear of the building and from the front. More progress being made. The timeline for that is now extended out into sometime in March or even early April before that facility is going to be ready. That being said, folks are still working at it. I go by and I take pictures and I just kind of watch and see what's taking place from time to time and what's changing. The curbs, the sidewalk, all of that is in place just like it is over at 55. And so it's really taking shape, but there's some fine details and other work that's still underway. As far as the storm, we talked about, the damage from the storm, whether it be soil erosion, whether it be uprooted trees, down power lines, flooding, et cetera, et cetera. The photos here are self-explanatory, and I know Commissioner Luckham lives in the canal, so he probably saw some of this firsthand. But it's certainly real, and I had always envisioned or tried to envision what it would be like when we had flooding conditions. And I got to say, I'm really pleased, though, given the amount of rain that we had. This could have been a lot worse. October 24th of 2021, we had a pretty good storm, but we didn't have the consistency and volume of water and rain that we had in this instance for a 3-week period. And I saw less damage and concern this storm than I did on that weekend storm in 2021. So that speaks to a lot of things that have been taking place with Public Works. It speaks to the timing, the clearing of the drains, the coordinated efforts to get ahead of something that was on this scale and magnitude. There's some things you can't do much about, like the height of our sea level or below sea level lands. But they did an excellent job of trying to get ahead of and resolving and addressing issues as they surfaced. PG&E upstaffed to try to ensure that their crews were in a position to help out and restore power when power was lost. And so it was a really, I think, a very effective effort. When we look at all the damage that occurred countywide, San Rafael was spared from a lot of grief. Last two items. Promotional ceremony and awards, promotional and award ceremony offered by SRPD. And I know this is the Fire Commission, but I was really impressed by what I saw with the police department's ceremony and promotional and award ceremony that they held on Tuesday, the 24th. Chief Spiller and staff ranging from dispatchers to others that were being promoted and others that had done some things that were really worth commemorating and or commendating were all acknowledged that day, and it was well done. It was very well attended, and that snapshot I showed you there doesn't do it justice, but it gives you an idea of what was taking place that day in City Hall. And I think that's the first promotional ceremony I've seen in City Hall since my arrival here almost 3 years now. I'm sure you're going to see more of this to follow in this location. In fact, I'm thinking I might want to do our ceremony instead of at 52 where we had been, to now move it over to City Hall where others can have easier access in the future. And last but not least, we have a recruitment underway, and there's a variety of photographs that just show some of our current members and some of the activities they're involved in, whether it be training, whether it be on the bay, whether it be some of our badge painting that took place for some of our recent recruits who were doing well in the organization on probationary periods and looking to continue the great work that our members are known for providing, looking to continue to provide the great service that our members are known and are accustomed to providing, and our communities accustomed to receiving as well. So with that, we've got 5 individuals that I'm gonna interview next Friday as potential lateral firefighter paramedic recruits, and we're hoping that we find some quality individuals within those 5 that we can put through a fire academy here in the next several weeks and start getting a little more ahead of some of our staffing attrition and or potential loss of individuals to retirement or other purposes. So any questions?
Mhm.
Questions or comments, anyone? One of the things I will toss out in looking at across the department these days, 15 years ago, give or take a bit, more than half of the department's staffing was 50 years old or older. And talk about a turnaround. We have relatively few folks these days that preceded me on the fire commission. So it's a very young, very enthusiastic, highly educated department. Whereas 20 years ago, we had a lot of folks that had come to the department at the end of the Korean War or what have you, and served out a career and then retired. But it's great to see the young people and see the enthusiasm. So, okay, anybody else have anything?
Hey, Chief, can I throw out a non sequitur to you? And I'll be extremely brief. There's a large homeless encampment growing in Albert Park. Does that give the department concern, especially for fire and sanitation? And if it does, is the department or the city doing anything about it?
Oh, Thomas, you're a spoiler.
Sorry. I was vacillating whether to even bring it up.
No, it's quite evident.
Well, no,
Oh,
I
you guys
think,
have seen it too?
Yeah, I've seen it.
I think when you consider that the service support area was shut down, there was concern about where would the homeless who had not been housed, where would they, decide to relocate to? And anytime you're looking at relocating in an area where there's a lot of vegetation or perhaps the potential for an accident to start a vegetation fire, we're certainly concerned about that. We do have rangers who were brought in as part of the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority funding. So San Rafael Police Department, their rangers actually will patrol some of the open space and some of the other areas where they suspect encampments may occur, and ensure that I'll ensure that they have this information. I'm assuming they already have it, but what I can do is find out more about what actions they're taking at Albert Park so that I can relay that information back.
Yeah, and I'll chime in here just because it's a huge discussion amongst the city team. I am totally blanking on the law that was approved a few years back in Idaho.
Yes.
It's a federal court decision.
And so the city is basically, our hands are tied on what we're able and unable to do. And we are working with all parties and, working hard to try to find these individuals a safe place to live or shelter at least, so that they're not having to be so close to a busy street and in a park and all sorts of things. And so there's meetings happening at all levels, and it's just that the laws don't allow very much flexibility at this time.
Yeah, Tom, the law requires that we give notice and 48 hours in which for the individuals to relocate and this, that, and the other thing. The homeless camps have for years been a source of wildland fires, particularly at night. There was a period there for a couple of years where the Canalways area, which is a big open space that includes a drainage basin, basically behind Home Depot, big chunk where Kerner Boulevard stops and then restarts. That was like I said, there was a period there where we were down there almost every night. And sometimes we'd be there at night and then we'd be back again during the day. And I was scared to death that either sooner or later we would have a fatality or a firefighter would get hurt. So these are just ongoing. And you know, when the Ritter House closed their showers, which they did in 2019, I think, at the city's request, trying to convince homeless people to move away from the downtown area. What they did was those same homeless people just went over to the Marin Yacht Club, which has showers for the people who are paying for berths. And although they're locked, they would hang around and wait for somebody to open one of the showers and then step right in, and then it would hold the door for the next person and the next person and the next person. So it's a problem, that's for sure. Anything else beyond that? Going, gone. I'm gaveling the meeting closed. Thank you for your participation.
Glad I made it
Have
for
a good rest of the week, everybody.
Have a great week.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Everybody.
Bye.
All right. See you later.
Bye-bye.